The Discovery of Oz, the Terrible.
Разоблачение Оз, Ужасного.
The Discovery of Oz, the Terrible. The four travelers walked up.
Четверо путешественников подошли.
The four travelers walked up to the great gate of Emerald City.
К великим воротам Изумрудного города.
To the great gate of Emerald City. And rang the bell.
И позвонили в колокол.
And rang the bell. After ringing several times.
После нескольких звонков.
After ringing several times. It was opened by the same guardian of the gates.
Дверь открыл тот же страж врат.
It was opened by the same guardian of the gates. They had met before.
С которым они встречались раньше.
They had met before. What? Are you back again?
Что, вы вновь вернулись?
What? Are you back again? He asked, in surprise.
Удивленно спросил он.
He asked, in surprise. Do you not see us?
Разве ты не видишь нас?
Do you not see us? Answered the scarecrow.
Ответил страшила.
Answered the scarecrow. But I thought you had gone.
Но я думал, что вы отправились.
But I thought you had gone. To visit the wicked witch of the west.
Навестить злую ведьму Запада.
To visit the wicked witch of the west. We did visit her.
Мы навестили ее,
We did visit her. Said the scarecrow.
сказал страшила.
Said the scarecrow. And she let you go again?
И она вас отпустила?
And she let you go again? Asked the man, in wonder.
Удивленно спросил мужчина.
Asked the man, in wonder. She could not help it.
Она ничего не могла поделать,
She could not help it. For she is melted.
потому что она растаяла,
For she is melted. Explained the scarecrow.
объяснил страшила.
Explained the scarecrow. Melted.
Растаяла.
Melted. Well, that is good news, indeed.
Что ж, это действительно хорошая новость,
Well, that is good news, indeed. Said the man.
сказал мужчина.
Said the man. Who melted her?
Кто ее растопил?
Who melted her? It was Dorothy.
Дороти?
It was Dorothy. Said the lion gravely.
Серьезно сказал лев.
Said the lion gravely. Good gracious.
Господи!
Good gracious. Exclaimed the man.
Воскликнул мужчина.
Exclaimed the man. And he bowed very low indeed before her.
И очень низко поклонился ей.
And he bowed very low indeed before her. Then he led them into his little room.
Затем он провел их в свою маленькую комнату.
Then he led them into his little room. And locked the spectacles from the great box on all their eyes.
И надел им на глаза очки из большого ящика.
And locked the spectacles from the great box on all their eyes. Just as he had done before.
Как делал прежде.
Just as he had done before. Afterward they passed on through the gate.
После этого они прошли через ворота.
Afterward they passed on through the gate. Into the Emerald City.
В Изумрудный город.
Into the Emerald City. When the people heard from the guardian of the gates.
Когда люди услышали от стража врат,
When the people heard from the guardian of the gates. That Dorothy had melted the wicked witch of the west.
что Дороти растопила злую ведьму Запада,
That Dorothy had melted the wicked witch of the west. They all gathered around the travelers.
все они собрались вокруг путешественников.
They all gathered around the travelers. And followed them.
И последовали за ними.
And followed them. In a great crowd to the palace of Oz.
Огромной толпой во дворец Оз.
In a great crowd to the palace of Oz. The soldier with the green whiskers.
Солдат с зелеными бакенбардами.
The soldier with the green whiskers. Was still on guard before the door.
Все еще стоял на страже перед дверью,
Was still on guard before the door. But he let them in at once.
но тотчас же впустил их,
But he let them in at once. And they were again met by the beautiful green girl.
и их снова встретила красивая зеленая девушка,
And they were again met by the beautiful green girl, who showed each of them to their old rooms at once.
которая провела каждого из них по своим прежним комнатам,
Who showed each of them to their old rooms at once. So they might rest.
чтобы они могли отдохнуть,
So they might rest. Until the great Oz was ready to receive them.
пока Великий Оз будет готов принять их.
Until the great Oz was ready to receive them. The soldier had the news carried straight to Oz.
Солдат лично сообщил Оз,
The soldier had the news carried straight to Oz. That Dorothy and the other travelers.
что Дороти и другие путешественники
That Dorothy and the other travelers. Had come back again.
вернулись обратно,
Had come back again. After destroying the wicked witch.
уничтожив злую ведьму.
After destroying the wicked witch. But Oz made no reply.
Но Оз ничего не ответил.
But Oz made no reply. They thought.
Они думали,
They thought. The great wizard would send for them at once.
что великий волшебник немедленно пошлет за ними,
The great wizard would send for them at once. But he did not.
но он этого не сделал.
But he did not. They had no word from him the next day.
От него не было вестей ни на следующий день,
They had no word from him the next day. Nor the next, nor the next.
ни на следующий день.
Nor the next, nor the next. The waiting was tiresome and wearing.
Ожидание было утомительным и нудным,
The waiting was tiresome and wearing. And at last they grew vexed.
и, наконец, они раздосадовались,
And at last they grew vexed. That Oz should treat them in so poor a fashion.
что Оз так плохо обращается с ними,
That Oz should treat them in so poor a fashion. After sending them to undergo hardships and slavery.
отправив их на лишение и рабство.
After sending them to undergo hardships and slavery. So the Scarecrow at last asked the green girl.
Итак, Страшила наконец попросил зеленую девушку
So the Scarecrow at last asked the green girl. To take another message to Oz.
передать еще одно послание Оз,
To take another message to Oz. Saying if he did not let them in to see him at once.
сказав, что если он не впустит их к себе сейчас же,
Saying if he did not let them in to see him at once. They would call the winged monkeys to help them.
они позовут на помощь крылатых обезьян,
They would call the winged monkeys to help them. And find out whether he kept his promises or not.
и посмотрят, сдержал ли он свои обещания или нет.
And find out whether he kept his promises or not. When the wizard was given this message.
Когда волшебник получил это сообщение,
When the wizard was given this message. He was so frightened.
он был так напуган,
He was so frightened. That he sent word for them to come to the throne room.
что приказал им прийти в тронный зал.
That he sent word for them to come to the throne room. At 4 minutes after 9 o'clock the next morning.
В 4 минуты 9 следующего утра.
At 4 minutes after 9 o'clock the next morning. He had once met the winged monkeys.
Однажды он встретил крылатых обезьян.
He had once met the winged monkeys. In the land of the West.
В стране Запада.
In the land of the West. And he did not wish to meet them again.
И не хотел встречаться с ними снова.
And he did not wish to meet them again. The 4 travelers passed a sleepless night.
4 путешественников провели бессонную ночь.
The 4 travelers passed a sleepless night. Each thinking of the gift.
Каждый думая о подарке,
Each thinking of the gift. Oz had promised to bestow on him.
который Оз обещал подарить ему.
Oz had promised to bestow on him. Dorothy fell asleep only once.
Дороти заснула только один раз,
Dorothy fell asleep only once. And then she dreamed she was in Kansas.
и тогда ей приснилось, что она в Канзасе,
And then she dreamed she was in Kansas. Where Aunt Em was telling her how glad she was.
где тетя Эм рассказывала ей, как она рада,
Where Aunt Em was telling her how glad she was. To have her little girl at home again.
что ее маленькая девочка снова дома.
to have her little girl at home again. Promptly at 9 o'clock the next morning.
Ровно в 9 часов следующего утра.
Promptly at 9 o'clock the next morning. The green-whiskered soldier came to them.
К ним подошел зеленоусый солдат.
The green-whiskered soldier came to them. And 4 minutes later they all went.
А через 4 минуты все они вошли.
And 4 minutes later they all went. Into the throne room of the great Oz.
В тронный зал великого Оз.
Into the throne room of the great Oz. Of course each one of them expected.
Конечно, каждый из них ожидал.
Of course each one of them expected. To see the wizard in the shape.
Увидеть волшебника в том виде,
To see the wizard in the shape. He had taken before.
в каком он принимал прежде.
He had taken before. And all were greatly surprised when they looked about.
И все очень удивились, когда огляделись.
And all were greatly surprised when they looked about. And saw no one all in the room.
И не увидели в комнате вообще никого.
And saw no one all in the room. They kept close to the door.
Они держались ближе к двери.
They kept close to the door. And closer to one another.
И ближе друг к другу.
And closer to one another. For the stillness of the empty room.
Потому что тишина пустой комнаты.
For the stillness of the empty room. Was more dreadful than any of the forms they.
Была более ужасной, чем любая из форм,
Was more dreadful than any of the forms they. Had seen Oz take.
которые принимал Оз.
Had seen Oz take. Presently they heard a solemn voice.
Вскоре они услышали мрачный голос,
Presently they heard a solemn voice. That seemed to come from somewhere.
который, казалось, исходил откуда-то.
That seemed to come from somewhere. Near the top of the great dome.
Из-под макушки большого купола.
Near the top of the great dome. And it said.
И сказал:
And it said. I am Oz, the great and terrible.
«Я Оз, великий и ужасный.
I am Oz, the great and terrible. Why do you seek me?
Почему вы ищете меня?»
Why do you seek me? They looked again in every part of the room.
Они снова осмотрели все уголки комнаты,
They looked again in every part of the room. And then, seeing no one, Dorothy asked.
а затем, никого не увидев, Дороти спросила:
And then, seeing no one, Dorothy asked. Where are you?
«Где ты?»
Where are you? I am everywhere.
«Я повсюду»,
I am everywhere. Answered the voice.
— ответил голос.
Answered the voice. But to the eyes of common mortals I am invisible.
«Но для глаз простых смертных я невидим.
But to the eyes of common mortals I am invisible. I will now seat myself upon my throne.
Сейчас я сяду на свой трон,
I will now seat myself upon my throne. That you may converse with me.
чтобы вы могли поговорить со мной».
That you may converse with me. Indeed, the voice.
В самом деле, голос,
Indeed, the voice. Seemed just then to come straight from the throne itself.
казалось, только что исходил прямо от самого трона.
Seemed just then to come straight from the throne itself. So they walked toward it and stood in a row.
Поэтому они подошли к нему и встали в ряд.
So they walked toward it and stood in a row. While Dorothy said.
А Дороти сказала:
While Dorothy said. We have come to claim our promise, O Oz.
«Мы пришли получить обещанное».
We have come to claim our promise, O Oz. What promise?
«Какое обещание?»
What promise? Asked Oz.
— спросил Оз.
Asked Oz. You promised to send me back to Kansas.
«Ты обещал отправить меня обратно в Канзас,
You promised to send me back to Kansas. When the wicked witch was destroyed.
когда злая ведьма будет уничтожена»,
When the wicked witch was destroyed. Said the girl.
— сказала девушка.
Said the girl. And you promised to give me brains.
«А мне обещал дать мозги»,
And you promised to give me brains. Said the scarecrow.
— сказал Страшила.
Said the scarecrow. And you promised to give me a heart.
«А мне обещал дать сердце».
And you promised to give me a heart, said the Tin Woodman.
Сказал железный дровосек.
Said the Tin Woodman. And you promised to give me courage.
А мне обещал придать смелости.
And you promised to give me courage, said the Cowardly Lion.
Сказал трусливый лев.
Said the Cowardly Lion. Is the wicked witch really destroyed?
Действительно ли злая ведьма уничтожена?
Is the wicked witch really destroyed? Asked the voice.
Спросил голос.
Asked the voice. And Dorothy thought it trembled a little.
И Дороти показалось, что он слегка дрожит.
And Dorothy thought it trembled a little. Yes.
Да,
Yes. She answered.
ответила она.
She answered. I melted her with a bucket of water.
Я растопила ее ведром воды.
I melted her with a bucket of water. Dear me.
Боже мой,
Dear me. Said the voice.
сказал голос,
Said the voice. How sudden.
как неожиданно.
How sudden. Well, come to me tomorrow.
Что ж, приходите ко мне завтра.
Well, come to me tomorrow. For I must have time to think it over.
Мне надо успеть все обдумать.
For I must have time to think it over. You've had plenty of time already.
У тебя и так уже было полно времени.
You've had plenty of time already, said the Tin Woodman angrily.
Сердито сказал железный дровосек.
Said the Tin Woodman angrily. We shan't wait a day longer.
Мы не будем ждать ни дня,
We shan't wait a day longer, said the Scarecrow.
сказал Страшила.
Said the Scarecrow. You must keep your promises to us.
Ты должен сдержать свои обещания.
You must keep your promises to us, exclaimed Dorothy.
Воскликнула Дороти.
Exclaimed Dorothy. The lion thought.
Лев подумал,
The lion thought. It might be as well to frighten the wizard.
что было бы неплохо напугать волшебника.
It might be as well to frighten the wizard. So he gave a large, loud roar.
Поэтому он издал сильный, громкий рык,
So he gave a large, loud roar, which was so fierce and dreadful.
который был таким яростным и ужасным,
Which was so fierce and dreadful. That Toto jumped away from him in alarm.
что Татошка в тревоге отскочил от него.
That Toto jumped away from him in alarm. And tipped over the screen that stood in a corner.
И опрокинул ширму, стоявшую в углу.
And tipped over the screen that stood in a corner. As it fell with a crash.
Когда он упал с грохотом,
As it fell with a crash. They looked that way.
они посмотрели в ту сторону,
They looked that way. And the next moment.
и в следующий момент
And the next moment. All of them were filled with wonder.
все они были полны удивления,
All of them were filled with wonder. For they saw.
ибо они увидели,
For they saw. Standing in just the spot the screen had hidden.
стоящего в том месте, которое скрывала ширма,
Standing in just the spot the screen had hidden. A little old man, with a bald head.
маленького старичка с лысой головой,
A little old man, with a bald head. And a wrinkled face.
и морщинистым лицом,
And a wrinkled face. Who seemed to be as much surprised as they were.
который, казалось, был так же удивлен, как и они.
Who seemed to be as much surprised as they were. The Tin Woodman, raising his axe.
Железный дровосек, подняв топор,
The Tin Woodman, raising his axe. Rushed toward the little man and cried out.
бросился к человечку и закричал.
Rushed toward the little man and cried out. Who are you?
«Кто ты?»
Who are you? I am Oz, the great and terrible.
«Я Оз, великий и ужасный».
I am Oz, the great and terrible. Said the little man, in a trembling voice.
Сказал человечек дрожащим голосом.
Said the little man, in a trembling voice. But don't strike me, please don't.
«Но не бейте меня, пожалуйста, не бейте».
But don't strike me, please don't. And I'll do anything you want me to.
«И я сделаю все, что вы хотите».
And I'll do anything you want me to. Our friends looked at him.
Наши друзья смотрели на него.
Our friends looked at him. In surprise and dismay.
С удивлением и тревогой.
In surprise and dismay. I thought Oz was a great head.
Я думала, что Оз большая голова,
I thought Oz was a great head. Said Dorothy.
сказала Дороти.
Said Dorothy. And I thought Oz was a lovely lady.
А я думал, что Оз прекрасная леди,
And I thought Oz was a lovely lady. Said the Scarecrow.
сказал Страшила.
Said the Scarecrow. And I thought Oz was a terrible beast.
А я думал, что Оз ужасное чудище,
And I thought Oz was a terrible beast. Said the Tin Woodman.
сказал железный дровосек.
Said the Tin Woodman. And I thought Oz was a ball of fire.
А я думал, что Оз это огненный шар,
And I thought Oz was a ball of fire. Exclaimed the lion.
воскликнул лев.
Exclaimed the lion. No, you are all wrong.
Нет, вы все неправы,
No, you are all wrong. Said the little man meekly.
кротко сказал человечек.
Said the little man meekly. I have been making believe.
Я притворялся.
I have been making believe. Making believe.
Притворялся.
Making believe. Cried Dorothy.
Воскликнула Дороти.
Cried Dorothy. Are you not a great wizard?
Разве ты не великий волшебник?
Are you not a great wizard? Hush, my dear.
Тише, моя дорогая,
Hush, my dear. He said.
сказал он.
He said. Don't speak so loud, or you will be overheard.
Не говори так громко, а то тебя услышат.
Don't speak so loud, or you will be overheard. And I should be ruined.
И я погибну.
And I should be ruined. I'm supposed to be a great wizard.
Я должен быть великим волшебником.
I'm supposed to be a great wizard. And aren't you?
А это не так?
And aren't you? She asked.
Спросила она.
She asked. Not a bit of it, my dear.
Нисколько, моя дорогая.
Not a bit of it, my dear. I'm just a common man.
Я просто обычный человек.
I'm just a common man. You're more than that.
Ты больше этого.
You're more than that. Said the Scarecrow, in a grieved tone.
Сказал Страшила, огорченным тоном.
Said the Scarecrow, in a grieved tone. You're a humbug.
Ты обманщик.
You're a humbug. Exactly so.
Это точно.
Exactly so. Declared the little man, rubbing his hands together.
Заявил человечек, потирая руки.
Declared the little man, rubbing his hands together. As if it pleased him.
Как будто ему это нравилось.
As if it pleased him. I am a humbug.
Я обманщик.
I am a humbug. But this is terrible.
Но это ужасно,
But this is terrible. Said the Tin Woodman.
сказал железный дровосек.
Said the Tin Woodman. How shall I ever get my heart?
Как мне получить мое сердце?
How shall I ever get my heart? Or I my courage?
Или мне храбрость?
Or I my courage? Asked the lion.
Спросил лев.
Asked the lion. Or I my brains?
Или мне мозги?
Or I my brains? Wailed the Scarecrow.
Завопил Страшила.
Wailed the Scarecrow. Wiping the tears from his eyes with his coat sleeve.
Вытирая рукавом сюртука слезы с глаз.
Wiping the tears from his eyes with his coat sleeve. My dear friends.
Мои дорогие друзья,
My dear friends. Said Oz.
сказал Оз.
Said Oz. I pray you not to speak of these little things.
Прошу вас не говорить об этих мелочах.
I pray you not to speak of these little things. Think of me, and the terrible trouble.
Подумайте обо мне и о тех ужасных неприятностях,
Think of me, and the terrible trouble. I mean it being found out.
которые у меня возникнут, когда меня разоблачат.
I mean it being found out. Doesn't anyone else know you're a humbug?
Разве никто не знает, что ты обманщик?
Doesn't anyone else know you're a humbug? Ask Dorothy.
Спросила Дороти.
Ask Dorothy. No one knows it.
Никто не знает этого,
No one knows it. But you four and myself.
кроме вас четверых и меня,
But you four and myself. Replied Oz.
ответил Оз.
Replied Oz. I have fooled everyone so long that I thought.
Я так долго всех дурачил, что думал,
I have fooled everyone so long that I thought. I should never be found out.
что меня никогда не разоблачат.
I should never be found out. It was a great mistake.
Это была большая ошибка.
It was a great mistake. My ever letting you into the throne room.
Что я позволил вам войти в тронный зал.
My ever letting you into the throne room. Usually I will not see even my subjects.
Обычно я не вижу даже своих подданных.
Usually I will not see even my subjects. And so they believe I am something terrible.
И поэтому они считают меня каким-то ужасным.
And so they believe I am something terrible. But I don't understand.
Но я не понимаю,
But I don't understand. Said Dorothy, in bewilderment.
растерянно сказала Дороти.
Said Dorothy, in bewilderment. How was it that you appeared to me?
Как вышло, что ты явился мне?
How was it that you appeared to me? As a great head?
Как большая голова.
As a great head? That was one of my tricks.
Это была одна из моих трюков,
That was one of my tricks. Answered Oz.
ответил Оз.
Answered Oz. Step this way, please.
Идите сюда, пожалуйста,
Step this way, please. And I will tell you all about it.
и я вам все расскажу.
And I will tell you all about it.